Hello, bass family, and welcome to Everything Bass. I was just playing over the Guided Improv 5. I'm taking the first section of rhythm changes, and I know there's some variations and some substitutions people make. This is a common one that I've run across in my musical playing, and it deals with playing 2 chords per measure, which sometimes can freak us out as bass players. So I wanted to take a moment to show you how studying your triads and improvising over, busier progressions like this can really make them less daunting, give you a lot of great ideas. Now, I was using just arpeggio tones for my improv at the beginning, and not just as soloing, as bass lines, as walking bass lines, jazz bass lines, whatever. I think this exercise is going to be good for you. It's something I still do. When I find a new real book tune I'm working on, I'll run through these triads, just the triads, and do kind of the exercises I'm going to show you now. So let's get into it. Now, as always, if you can have someone record the changes, you can go on to my Patreon account. The description is below. You can download sheet music, but also there'll be a WAV file there. So if you don't have someone you can jam along with, or if you can record yourself playing the chords, it's helpful to just play along with my WAV file, and that way you can hear the effects of what I'm going to ask you to do against the chords. I think it's pretty valuable. So the progression is, first measure is B flat major to G minor 7, then C minor to F7, then D minor to G7, and then once again C minor to F7. So that's 4 bars, and there are 2 chords per bar. And as I said before, bass players at times, and I'm guilty of this when I was first starting out, I was really guilty, as I would see a progression like this, and I would just slip into roots. I would just sit there and go, root. And that's okay, but when you're playing a jazz tune that's really fast, or you're playing a tune that's got these changes and the section repeats, a bunch of times, that's boring for you, boring for the audience, boring for the musicians. And depending on the style of music, you could not really be representing the bass very well there. I want you to make decisions based on artistic expression, not on limitations. So if you feel like you get a little freaked out when you see 2 chords per measure and you just play roots, that's a limitation. So let's break that down. So the first thing you need to do is be able to get comfortable with the triads for each one of the chords. So B flat major triad, G minor triad, C minor triad, F7 triad, D minor triad, G7, the triad of G7, G major triad, C minor triad, and F major triad. So F's dominant chords have a major triad. We're only dealing with triads, so even though I kind of said 7 chords in there, basically we're just using major and minor triads. If you are shaky on those, why don't you go back and look at my series. I did a series on the triads. You can just search major triads, minor triads, diminished triads, augmented triads on my channel, and I go through how to play each one. So I want to kind of skip by that and jump right into this improv. So the first exercise I'm going to have you do is play a quarter note only bass line. It's a walking bass line, similar to you'd hear in jazz songs, playing just the roots in the 5th. So what that means is we're going to play 2 notes for every chord, because every 2 beats the chord changes. And I just want you to get comfortable playing the roots and 5ths. So what that'd be like is being like on the B flat chord, you play B flat and then the 5th. And you can either play the 5th above or below if you have a string available. So it'd be just root 5. Now it goes to G minor, root 5, C minor. I'm going to go root in the 5th below to the F, root 5, D 5, G 5, C 5, F 5. So knowing how to play a perfect 5th, either above in pitch, above the tonic that you're playing, or below, is important and makes kind of interesting. So let me play through that with this progression. Here we go. And that's just one. I mean, obviously you could play any of the 5ths, you can move anywhere on the bass, but just getting used to playing roots and 5ths. And don't skip by this because you think, oh, that's simple. Yeah, it is simple. I think. Hopefully, you'll find it simple. But the idea is, how can you make it interesting? When do you play the fifth below the tonic? Does that make more sense? Like you'll notice when I played the C, I played the fifth below because I was going to target this F. So it made for a cool kind of connected bass line. Whereas if I went like C, fifth, that's okay. But here I've got more of a contoured bass line. So playing just roots and fifths throughout the entire progression really should build you confidence. Now, number two, do the same as number one, but with roots and thirds. So where all the chords, major and minor alike, had the same fifth, you didn't have to adjust the fifth, which fifth you played, depending on the quality of the chord. Now we do. So we either going to have a major third interval or a minor third interval. So on the B flat major, we're going to play the D, which is the major third. Then we go to the G, it's a minor, so we're going to play a B flat, which is the minor third. Then we got the C to the E flat, minor third. And we got F to a major third, F A. Got the D, minor, so it's going to be a minor third, to the G, which is a major third, and C, minor third, and F to a major third. So a couple things I like to point out. You'll notice on a lot of my minor thirds I'm using this fingering as opposed to this fingering. You should be able to do both. It's really use the fingering that's going to make the most sense to the note you're playing next. A lot of times about improvising is knowing where you're going, like where you're targeting, because that informs the decisions you make both fingering and melodically and rhythmically too. So, so sometimes I'll play this minor third, but if it makes more sense, I'll play this minor third. It's all dependent on the progression and what you want to accomplish. So playing through with thirds should sound pretty cool and give you a lot more harmonic richness to your bass line as opposed to just fifths. Now let me explain that. When you played the fifths, since the perfect fifths are the same interval in minor and major triads, your bass line didn't really define the harmony. It just said, here's some kind of power chord, here's some kind of power chord. Now, because I'm putting in thirds, now you can start to hear that this is major, minor, minor, major, minor, major, minor, major. So the third really starts to tell you, like or at least let the listener hear, without hearing the chords, what the harmony is, and that's kind of cool. Okay, what's our third thing? Now we're going to do the same kind of walking bass line, but so 2 notes per chord, no fancy rhythms, no putting in 16th note runs and stuff like that yet. But we're not going to play the roots. Now this usually gets people a little bit freaked out, but I tell you, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool thing to work on, especially for your melody playing, because we as bass players have a tendency to be very root conscious. Everything we play is seems to be dependent on our playing the root first, but that's very limiting. Plus, when you go to soloing, it makes our soloing sound kind of weird that we always start each phrase with the root of the chord we're on. So I want to break you away from that. Now this one, at first, don't even turn on a sequencer, don't turn on my wave file, don't put on a metronome, because you're going to have to take time to think about it. And the best way I found was to visualize the pattern. Like, let's take B flat major. So I check B flat major, I know that's a fingering for B flat major. So I visualize that, but I only play the third and the fifth. All right, now when it goes to G minor, I visualize, actually I technically visualize this pattern, but I only play the B flat to the D. So let's play those first two. So on the B flat, I'm going to play the third and the fifth. Then on the G minor, I play the third and the fifth. Now it goes to C minor. I happen to know that the minor third is E flat, the fifth is G. And it goes to F, which the third is A, and then the fifth is C. So you get a very cool sound. You're also starting to expand your musicianship, not being really tied to the tonic, if you will. So you get these very cool ideas. Sorry. Kind of lost my progression there for a second. So this I would do without the metronome on at all and take time to learn it out, and then throw on the harmony so you could hear the effects of these notes against the chords. It's so valuable. It's so great. It's a wonderful challenge. and hopefully will unlock some ideas for you in your bass line construction, regardless of the genre you play in. All right, now what's number 4? Now play an eighth note only bass line using just triadic chord tones. So now we're playing 4 notes per chord because we're playing 8 notes. So we're playing 1 and 2 and the chord is for 2 beats. The chord lasts for all those. So we have a B flat major, and the chord we play is for 4 eighth notes. So now we can actually play more of the triad. We can go G minor, C minor, F dominant, D minor, G major, C minor, F major. Doing that is a good exercise in itself, because now when you do want to put, like say you're just playing a walking jazz line and you want to put a little run in, you'll have ideas of how to do it with just chord tones, and I think it sounds really great. But what we're really doing is strengthening your understanding of how to play over 2 chord per bar progressions and not be so intimidated by them. You know, I didn't add this on. Well, let me, the last one, finally freely improvise over the changes using just triad tones. So when you are playing over this thing, the last thing I always want you to do as you're working on these exercises is just take a moment and express. That's what I was doing at the beginning of the video. Just throw on the progression using just chord tones. Don't go into all your scales and chromatic runs, but just kind of play through and get experience with that. It's kind of like the dessert at the end of the meal. You know, you've done all this preparation, but now you got to create musically for it. You've got to make it not sound like an exercise. Combine ideas. Combine like root fifth for one passage to a root third. What I mean by that is like maybe I'm improvising and I go root fifth, then an eighth note, then root third, and another eighth note. You know, 4 eighth notes for a chord. Freely, just mix and match, and you're going to start developing an improvisational style, and will make these progressions not as scary. As you'll have a safety net. If you're playing with musicians and they throw open the real book and it's got sections with 2 chords per bar, what I want is you to go, no problem, I'll just go back into triads and I'll just play 2 notes per chord, and I'll do thirds, fifths, thirds and fifths, I'll do eighth note runs, but staying within the triad, and you'll find some cool things there. I thought, you know, it's funny, I prepare these videos and I have a script you see me looking at to make sure I don't miss anything, but then I realized that there's something I missed, and it's a really cool way to take a progression like this and make it sound pretty hip, and it's simply using the root of the chord on every, like the first beat for every new chord, just play whatever that tonic is, but then play a chromatic going to the next tonic. So let me explain. So the first chord's B flat major, so you play a B flat. The next chord is G minor, so you play a chromatic. You can go either above or below. I'm going to play the F sharp, and then it goes to the G because the next chord is G minor. Now I'm going to go to the C, my next chord's C, so I'm going to play a half step above C, and then the C. So you're playing a root, and then a half step into the next root, and then a half step into the next root. And you can go a half step above or below. Some will sound better, but you have to experience it. So let me show you what that sounds like. So we're going to go. So there you have it. A simple device. If you can just geographically see the fingerboard and you can look ahead, you're playing the B flat, but you look ahead to the G minor, you'll know what that in-between note has to be. And you can get some really cool things. And at higher tempos, sometimes I'll just play it like that. And it's funny because, you know, when you're jamming with players and you play something, it's always cool to key into what they say. Like you'll hear them go, ah, hip, or cool, or what are you doing there, buddy? And you can kind of figure out, well, that was good. Oh, that wasn't so good. And at times when I've jammed with guys and we playing through some real book tunes and I just throw into some root chromatic patterns, invariably I always hear somebody go, oh yeah, you know, and it's funny because it's one of the simplest things you can do is just tonic, chromatic, tonic, chromatic, tonic, chromatic, tonic, chromatic, tonic, chromatic, tonic, chromatic, tonic. But hey, have it in your toolbox, have it ready. Just in case something shakes you, you get a little flustered, you can always fall back on that root chromatic pattern. And people seem to enjoy it. I enjoy playing it. It's kind of fun to play. I like how it sounds. Now you mix those in with some occasionally playing a root and a third, a root and a fifth, an 8-note triad run, and you've got a really cool improvised bass line. All right, man. Woo! Okay, now we're into it, aren't we? We're taking things like triads, which were one-dimensional when you first learned them, and really creating with them, breaking down barriers, destroying fears, and getting better and more confident in improvisation. And that's kind of exciting. I still practice this stuff. I mean, this is stuff that gets me juiced. All right. Hey, I had a really cool idea for the Encore Item, and that's a book. And unfortunately, it's going to alienate some of you guys because it's really to people that can sight read bass clef, because it's not available in treble clef, and it is the Charlie Parker Omni book. Now, why do I bring this up? When we're dealing with improvisation, there's a lot of ways we can improve. We need to do exercises like what I showed you today, just going through chord tone exercises over changes, get our ear trained to that, get our hands trained to it, learn how to like lead from one chord tone to another. All those things are very, very important. Another way is learn what people have done before us. The Charlie Parker Omni book for bass clef is just, it's kind of a must-have for every player who's really been working on like coming up with their own improvisations, because what you can do is you can learn from him. And what's brilliant about it is it has the chords over his melodies or solos that he played, and you can just take, it's a little intimidating first because the stuff's usually pretty technical, pretty hard to play, but if you just take like one measure and you look at the chord and you look at the notes that he's playing, and then what I want you to do, and especially if you've gone through my series on understanding intervals, where you know like on a G7 chord, what is a B note, what is a D note, what's the F note, what interval it is, and write that below it. So you start writing what the intervals are. You can start seeing cool patterns, like when's he doing scale runs, when's he doing a triadic idea, when's he just staying on root and fifth. By doing this, you're informing yourself with new ideas and new concepts that really are helpful. Now, for my players that are sight readers and maybe you just feel really great in your improvisation, you don't think you need it, this is a great sight reading thing to keep your sight reading chops up. Get the Omni book, because boy, it will keep your sight reading chops frosty. It's awesome. I mean, I'm really into this book. I've had it for about 30 years, 20 years, I guess. Split the difference, about 25 years. Because I got it my first year at MI, and because everyone had it, and I felt like I should get this. And sure enough, it's just every time I dive into it, I get a new idea, I get some new vocabulary, and it just kind of inspires me to kind of dig deeper and become better at improvisation. Okay, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Guided Improv 5, rhythm changes, how to play through them and not be intimidated by them using triads and chromatics. I added that in as a bonus. I'll have to update the lesson sheet that I put on to Everything Bass, the Patreon page. Speaking of which, if you need any of the materials and the WAV files, go to my Patreon link in the description below. Go over there, become a Backstage Pass subscriber, and you can download all the WAV files, all the stuff you want. For currently, it's $8 a month. You can get all of it. So there's over 100, I think at time of recording, there's over 115 videos up there, which means most of them, all but like a handful, have some lesson sheets you can download. And you can kind of come up with a pretty comprehensive lesson plan for you to practice and become better. All right, let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers soon. It would make me so happy. But also, just share it with other people. Hit the thumbs up. All these little things. If you appreciate the videos, you want them to keep going. If I'm doing something that's got value to you, if you can give me a like, a subscribe, a share, all those things really help grow the channel and really show me that I'm on the right path. If I'm off the right path for what you want to learn, tell me. Let me know what would be the best thing I could teach you to get you over maybe a plateau that you're in, to get you to be better in the band that you're in, or just better playing at home. Whatever you need, I'd love to be able to supply it for you. So that's it, and I will see you at the next video.